The contact shouldn't exist. It appeared at bearing 270, less than 4 nautical miles out. Chief Petty Officer Dana Rivas pulled one earphone back, held it there, then pressed it forward again. The signal was still there. Low frequency, barely above ambient. She checked her depth layer, checked her gain settings. She said nothing for 11 seconds. Then she called the con. USS Oregon had been running north of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge for 6 days. Virginia class, one of the quietest hulls ever put in the water. Her mission was straightforward. Locate the K-561 Kazan, Russia's most advanced Yasen-M class attack submarine, believed to be transiting toward the GIUK gap, and track it. Standard intercept geometry. Oregon would find it first. Oregon would own the geometry. That was how these operations worked. Except Rivas wasn't picking up a transiting submarine. The Kazan's acoustic signature was in the database. Flow noise at speed. Cavitation signatures at depth transitions. Low-frequency blade rate harmonics specific to the Yasen-M propulsor design. Every Yasen-M sounded like a Yasen-M when it was moving. This contact wasn't moving. No cavitation, no flow noise, no blade rate at all. Just a low-pressure ghost at the edge of Rivas's passive array, sitting at bearing 270 like it had always been there. Which meant one of two things. Either this wasn't the Kazan, or the Kazan had learned something the US Navy didn't know it had learned. The fire control team ran geometry for 4 minutes. Oregon's towed array gave them bearing. Time and bearing drift gave them a range estimate. The contact's depth layer placed it at approximately 350 meters. Then they got the solution. The contact wasn't on a transit heading. It was stationary. 0 bearing drift. 0 speed over ground. It hadn't been moving through the area. It had been sitting precisely, deliberately motionless in the exact corridor Oregon was using to approach from the north. Commander Aaron Szymanski looked at that solution for 3 seconds without speaking. If the Kazan was stationary in Oregon's approach corridor, it wasn't intercepting a shipping lane. It wasn't running signals collection on surface traffic. It wasn't executing a standard patrol box. It was waiting. And the only asset in that corridor worth waiting for was Oregon. The entire operation had been built on one assumption. Oregon was the hunter. Submarine had tasked her with locating and tracking the Kazan. Oregon had the intelligence. Oregon had the geometry. Oregon had the initiative. She didn't. Somewhere between a classified brief and a set of coordinates that should never have left a secure facility, the Kazan had learned where Oregon would be, and it had arrived first. Szymanski spoke 4 words to his executive officer. Get me a count. The count meant one thing. How long had the contact been stationary? Rivas worked backward through the passive record. 6 hours of accumulated acoustic data in 20-minute blocks. She was looking for the moment the Kazan stopped. The transition from sprint to drift. The instant a moving submarine became a waiting one. She found it. 31 hours ago. The Kazan had been stationary for 31 hours. Oregon's approach route, her corridor, her depth layer, her exact northern entry point, had been finalized in a classified Submarine brief 48 hours before Oregon left port. 48 hours, 31 hours stationary. The math required no explanation. There was a window between that brief and Oregon's departure. In that window, something had moved. A transmission, a data pull, a communication that left a classified space and arrived somewhere it was never authorized to go. And whoever received it had passed it to the Kazan with enough lead time to position. Szymanski didn't know who. He didn't know how. What he knew was this. The Kazan was sitting at 350 meters, less than 4 nautical miles off his bow, in a position that gave it a valid torpedo firing solution against Oregon's current course, and it had been holding that solution for possibly hours before Oregon detected it, which raised the question that didn't have an answer yet. Why hadn't it fired? Szymanski ordered a speed reduction to 2 knots. Oregon's own acoustic output dropped. Every system that could generate noise went to minimum power. She became as close to a hole in the water as physics allowed. He needed time. The Kazan had a solution on Oregon. Oregon now had a solution on the Kazan. Both submarines were holding fire. This was the geometry phase, where patience and spatial mathematics were the only weapons that still mattered. Oregon's one remaining advantage was this. The Kazan didn't know it had been detected. That advantage had a clock on it. If you followed this engagement from the first contact, you already understand something most people miss entirely about underwater warfare. The side that knows it's been detected loses. Detection itself isn't the crisis. Being detected without knowing it, that is the crisis. The Kazan was sitting in exactly that position. Oregon was exploiting it, but every minute Oregon held station was another minute of acoustic exposure. The Kazan's sonar suite was among the most capable Russia had ever deployed at sea. The gap between it and Oregon's ANPQ-10 was not large enough to be comfortable. At 3 minutes and 47 seconds after Rivas called the Kazan, something changed. The Kazan moved. Not fast, not a sprint. A drift, slow, deliberate, less than 2 knots. Rivas tracked the bearing shift in real time. The Kazan was rotating its bow, not toward Oregon's current position, toward where Oregon would be if she continued south. It wasn't holding a solution, it was recomputing one. Adjusting for Oregon's projected course. The Kazan was predicting her. Szymanski ordered an immediate course change. Northwest. He needed to break the geometry before the solution locked. The course change bought 90 seconds. Oregon's new bearing placed the Kazan in a difficult shot envelope. Bow on, closing, the hardest geometry to maintain against a maneuvering target. Rivas watched the bearing drift destabilize. The Kazan solution was degrading in real time. Then the ELF receiver activated. 3 characters. A priority code Szymanski had studied in training and never once seen transmitted during 12 years of active service. He read it twice. SOS had a second contact, not the Kazan. A separate acoustic signature on a different bearing, detected 7 minutes ago, positioned 140 nautical miles to the northeast. The signature matched a Yasen-M class, but the K-561 Kazan was here, 4 miles southwest, 350 meters deep. There wasn't one Yasen-M in this operation. There were 2. Everything Szymanski had been solving, the 31 hours of positioning, the route intelligence, the Kazan's patience, the held fire, had assumed a single submarine running a single operation. The Kazan as hunter, Oregon as target. The Kazan wasn't the primary asset, it was the bait. Whatever the second contact was doing 140 miles northeast, the Kazan had been positioned to fix Oregon in place, to absorb her attention, to keep her managing a local geometry problem while the actual operation executed elsewhere, outside Oregon's sensor range with no U.S. asset anywhere near it. Oregon had spent 4 minutes solving the Kazan problem. The Kazan problem was the distraction, and it had worked for precisely as long as it needed to. Szymanski had 2 options: hold position on the Kazan, maintain contact, deny it repositioning freedom, except that the second contact was already too far to intercept, or sprint northeast, break contact on the Kazan, and attempt to reach an asset he had no current position on. He looked at the ELF message again. SOS had a bearing on the second contact, not a position, not a solution, a bearing, and that bearing pointed northeast, toward the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, toward the classified undersea cable infrastructure whose exact routing was not supposed to exist in any unprotected system. Szymanski made his decision in under 10 seconds. Oregon went to a head flank. Flank meant abandoning acoustic stealth entirely. The Kazan would hear her, would know it had been detected, would know Oregon was running northeast. That knowledge opened a window, small, closing fast, but real, in which the Kazan could fire. Szymanski ran the geometry in his head. Oregon's acceleration curve, the Kazan's torpedo solution as it currently stood, the pursuit angle required against a target running northeast at flank. It was not a comfortable calculation, but it was a calculation with a survivable answer. Oregon's passive array flooded with self-noise. Rivas lost the Kazan contact completely. She was blind on the threat they'd spent 4 minutes solving. Behind them, the Kazan solution was degrading fast. 31 hours of patient positioning had been optimized for Oregon running south. Oregon running northeast at flank was not the scenario the Kazan had prepared for. A pursuit torpedo from that geometry was difficult. Not impossible. Difficult. 2 minutes passed without a weapon in the water. Oregon cleared the envelope. Sosu had refined the second contact's position during the sprint. The Yasen-M was deep, below the thermal layer, running at low speed, dragging something. The acoustic profile showed external drag consistent with a deployed UUV or a trailing system, possibly a cable tapping device, possibly something with a cutting edge. Oregon came off flank. Rivas reacquired. The contact was there. 280 meters, bearing 045, 7 nautical miles out. Oregon had it. What happened in the following 40 minutes exists under a classification level that has never been publicly acknowledged. The U.S. Navy has not confirmed the operation. Russia has not confirmed it. No satellite imagery has been released. What does appear in the narrow public record is this: a segment of undersea cable infrastructure in that region experienced an unexplained signal interruption on that date. 11 minutes, then it returned to normal, as if nothing had occurred. The Kazan returned to its waters. The second Yasen-M returned to its the 31 hours of positioning, the route intelligence that should never have left a secure facility, the submarine operation that used one asset to neutralize the only U.S. submarine in range. All of it remains open. The Atlantic has kept secrets before. This one hasn't surfaced yet.